I used to be an unmarried person. I always thought I would be happier living alone. However, at a party, I met my current husband. We fell in love at first sight and our romance developed very quickly. Soon we started thinking about our future life and family. Although I never wanted children before, when I met my husband, I began to envision myself having a complete family with children growing up together. Since I was over the age of 35, pregnancy might be more difficult for me. I learned that older mothers are prone to many health risks. 6 months into my marriage, I unexpectedly found out that I was pregnant. The news was a surprise to my husband and me, and we were both very happy and excited. Although we sometimes worried about whether we were ready for a child, we also felt full of love and anticipation. We started making all kinds of preparations for the upcoming child. At the same time, we made some changes to our lives, such as focusing more on healthy eating and lifestyle habits to ensure the health and development of our fetus. My husband was very caring throughout my pregnancy. He would cook for me often. We also planned the education and growth of our future child together and imagined a better life after the baby was born. When I was 2 months pregnant, I got sick a lot and didn't feel like I was in good health. Maybe it was because I was older and my body was less resistant to viruses. Even though I took great care of myself, I couldn't completely avoid getting sick. Later, my son was born successfully, and my husband and I were very happy. 3 months after my son was born, my headache became more and more severe. One day, I was home alone to take care of the baby. After successfully putting my son to bed, I felt thirsty and wanted to go to the kitchen to get a glass of water. The moment I stood up, I felt as if the whole room was spinning. I tried to stand firmly on my feet, but soon felt weakness on the soles of my feet. However, my eyes began to blur and I felt my consciousness begin to fade. When I opened my eyes again, I realized that my soul had left my body. I felt confused and scared, not knowing what had happened to me. I saw my body lying on the floor as if I was asleep. I saw that my son was sleeping in his crib. I began to feel panic and my mood became overwhelmed with anxiety. I didn't want to leave my child, I didn't want to give up my life, I wanted to watch my son grow. I started trying to get back into my body, but everything seemed like a pointless effort. My soul seemed unable to return to my body, leaving me with an overwhelming sense of despair. In this desperate situation, I thought of God. I prayed to God, God, please, now is not the time for me to leave, my son needs me. My prayer was answered. Suddenly, I noticed a door appear in the air of the room, a door that looked very special, like it was made of clouds. Even though I felt some uneasiness and uncertainty, I knew I had to go in and take a look. As I walked through the door, I felt a wonderful sense of calm, as if I were surrounded by an atmosphere of love. It was a space of nothingness where no matter existed, only pure energy. I felt very light and free of physical restraints and limitations. Although this space had no physical presence, its presence and energy made me feel infinitely warm and at ease. It made me believe that I would never be alone. Suddenly, a bright light appeared ahead. I felt that the whole space was illuminated by this bright light. Curious, I walked forward and tried to explore the secret of this light. As I approached the light, I saw a figure appear in front of me. He was wearing a white robe and he looked very tall, but I couldn't make out his face. Even though I couldn't see his face, I could feel how holy and powerful he was. I knew this man was God. I felt my soul became small in front of him. God told me that my time had not yet come and I could not enter that light yet. Your children still need your care. I told God that I was praying to you to help me get back into my body. I said to God, I don't want to go back just yet. Can I ask you a few questions? God replied, sure. I asked God why some people meet angels and you during near-death experiences and others do not. God gently replied, because each person's soul has its own path, and some need more guidance and help, while others have found their way. God went on to explain that some people feel lost and disoriented in life and they need to rediscover their faith and direction. The angels and I will lead them back on track. Some people have already found their faith and direction in life, and they don't need additional guidance or help. So in a near-death experience, they may not encounter angels and God, but will experience other experiences. God reminded me that people need to trust their heart and intuition, which is the key to finding their own direction. It is also important to understand that everyone's path is different and that one cannot force others to follow their own way. I had an abortion when I was 25 years old. It made me feel very guilty. So I asked God, I know that abortion is a bad thing. I want to know what are the specific bad effects. God answered that abortion is a wrong practice and explained why. Abortion is a violation of life. Every conceived life has a right to be protected, and abortion causes that right to be violated. Abortion can have an impact on both the individual and society. For the individual, abortion can lead to physical and psychological trauma that can last for a long time. Humanity should respect every life that is conceived. Efforts should be made to provide support and help to those who face difficulties in pregnancy and childbirth, rather than choosing abortion. Then, God showed me this picture. The soul of a child who is looking for a warm and happy home. This child saw many families, but he did not find the home he had been looking for. Finally, one day he saw a couple who were full of love and care and who gave a lot to each other. The child decided to choose this couple as his parents. But 2 months later, the couple had relationship problems. The girl decides to have an abortion. Finally, a new life disappeared. I felt so ashamed that God did not blame me. He reminded me that everyone makes mistakes and that I can achieve salvation and inner peace by reflecting and changing. At the same time, he reminded me that every life is precious and needs to be respected and cherished. Finally, I asked God if I could visit heaven, and he smiled and nodded. I felt very excited and held his hand tightly. Then, we suddenly disappeared into the same place. The next second, we appeared in a strange place. I found myself in a beautiful environment. Beneath my feet was an emerald green grass, and I could feel its soft and comfortable touch. There was a beautiful waterfall in the distance, with water dropping down from a high place, making a crisp and pleasant sound. The air here is very fresh and makes me feel very comfortable and relaxed. I looked up and found a huge city, suspended in the air. The city consisted of many tall buildings, palaces, and sculptures. The city was surrounded by a forest and a calm lake, which looked very peaceful and beautiful. Below the city, there were some small villages. These houses look very lovely. The houses are surrounded by gardens and ponds. Some small children are running and playing here, looking very happy. Everything here was so beautiful and perfect that I felt like I had entered a dream world. I turned my head to look at God, and he looked at me with a smile. He said, "This is heaven, and the people here have been enjoying happiness and joy." My heart was filled with gratitude. I never thought I would have the opportunity to enter such a wonderful world. While I was still admiring the beauty in front of me, I thought I heard the sound of a baby crying. It was my son crying. I knew I had to go back now. I had to go back and take care of my baby. I lifted my head and looked at God. Suddenly, a warmth wrapped around me. And then I was back in that nothingness. I went through the door and then back into the real world. I felt as if I had woken up from a dream. I saw that the door in the air had disappeared and the real world reappeared in front of my eyes. When I tried to move my body, but I couldn't do it. I felt as if I was a wandering spiritual body, unable to control my body. I knew that my soul had to reconnect with my body in order to regain the ability to move. I began to try to connect, but my first attempt failed. I heard my son's cries, and I became increasingly anxious and restless. But I did not give up. I concentrated again and tried to reconnect my soul with my body. I felt a wonderful power begin to flow into my body. My body gradually regained its ability to move. The process was not an easy one. I felt a strong pain, as if my whole body was trembling violently, but I did not give up. Eventually, I managed to get back into my body. I felt a strong rush of excitement as I regained my ability to move. I went to my son's crib and picked him up, and his cries gradually quieted down. I felt my body gradually recovering and I was once again a whole person. This experience happened more than 10 years ago, but I can remember all the details clearly every time I recall it. That experience was one of the most amazing and meaningful experiences of my life. I thank God that He was there for me when I needed Him the most. At that time, I felt like my soul had lost its direction and purpose. But God showed up and gave me hope and strength again. Now, my son is about to turn 18. I thank God for allowing me to be by his side. I shudder to think how my son would have gotten through all those years if I had actually died at that time. My heart is filled with gratitude and thankfulness because I was able to witness my son's growth and progress. He became more and more independent and confident and more responsible. I feel like the happiest person in the world because I have a healthy and happy child and a complete family. I now cherish every moment in my life. And it makes me believe more in God's will and arrangement. No matter what will happen in the future, I will be grateful for every person and every event in my life, because they are all precious gifts from God.